All right, folks, this is Dub Crank again. Uh, it is January of 2020, and I'm going to do a discussion today about the subject of police dogs. And uh, I'll read my little short description, and then I'm going to read a couple sentences from Wikipedia on what uh, police dogs are described as. So under my description, police dogs in traditional America, also known as canines, are used across America by the police for a few reasons. The first being to detect drugs or people through scent abilities, and the second reason to attack people, guard situations, restrain people, and as a show of force or intimidation. So that's my description. And on Wikipedia, a few sentences are that a police dog um, is a dog that is specifically trained to assist police and other law enforcement personnel. Their duties include searching for drugs and explosives, locating missing people, finding crime scene evidence, and attacking people targeted by the police. That's that's the point of my discussion today, is the part where they mention attacking people. So I've got my notes, which I always read from, and in this particular discussion today, it's going to be note intensive. Normally, I will digress onto my own knowledge or experiences to share, but today, because this is such a technical issue and subject, it's really important to talk specifically about the points that I'm discussing today regarding police dogs. So let's get into this. Now, the point that I take issue with, which is the meaning of this discussion, is the part I mentioned about the Wikipedia line about and attacking people targeted by the police. Dogs, canine dogs, being used for that reason. I don't have an issue with the scent tracking or responsibilities of police dogs, or even as a guard, which of course are used with individuals and citizens, not just police, but dogs are used as guards for many reasons. But the issue I take with is using dogs by law enforcement as an attack weapon uh, in their line of justice. So it is a violation. Before I start, let me just throw a disclaimer I always do in my videos. Everything I say in here is my opinion. There will be facts covered and statements, but even the news, factual reports of things in the news, but everything I talk about is my opinion, and that's been my experience and my education. So it is a violation of human rights and illegal to use any animal to kill humans, attack humans, injure or maim humans, or use the animal with deliberate intentions of causing physical or psychological or emotional harm to humans. As I said, this is going to be note intensive, so I'm mostly going to be reading from my notes for this discussion. So, police dogs kill and are deliberately used to kill. Police dogs are deliberately used to physically harm American citizens. Within this act, the intention is to cause fear and psychological terror and trauma to American citizens. It is illegal to threaten citizens with death or severe torturous physical injury by way of an attacking animal. It's illegal to injure a citizen by using an animal as a destructive weapon. It's illegal to train an animal to kill, injure, or intentionally cause harm to a human. So those are a lot of the first issues that I notice with dogs used by the police for law enforcement purposes, specifically in attacking citizens. So those are something to think about. And the next point, I'm going to talk about how the rights of the animal by American law are listed as higher than human rights for American citizens. So American law enforcement has made it a felony crime to harm a police dog. Excuse me. Has made it a crime to harm a police dog. That law has been passed. I know it's a law in Minnesota. I'm not sure about other states or as a federal law, but I know in Minnesota it was passed a few years back that it is now a felony. It is illegal to bestow, in my opinion, it is illegal to bestow higher or more legal rights on an animal than a human in reference to human rights. And for example, I mean just what I stated, that making it a felony to harm a police dog. This police dog felony law is a terrible and terribly, massively slanted law, making it a felony to harm a police dog. And it's also a contradiction in legal terms. Now, allow me to explain. Law enforcement trains a dog to pursue, attack, harm, torture, or kill a human. This means that when the police set a trained attack dog on you, you are not allowed by law to defend yourself against the dog harming you or fatally attacking you. Now, that's a violation of your rights as a human. You have the legal human right to defend yourself from any physical harm whatsoever from any trained animal, law enforcement or not. That's your human right. Now, this next statement I cannot emphasize enough. To not be allowed by law to defend yourself from death or great physical harm from an attack animal is a serious violation of your basic human rights. There's no getting around that one. So let's continue. No animal can ever be used by an American law enforcement for such purposes. It is illegal. By creating a law that makes it a felony to harm a police dog, American law enforcement is committing two crimes. Number one, they're violating your human rights to defend yourself. And number two, they're placing a dog's legal rights higher than human rights. And this is a violation of human rights. Now, in a case where an idle or confined police dog that is used for scent tracking purposes is attacked, harmed, or killed by a citizen who uses a gun or other weapon, then a case can be made of a crime similar but to a lesser charge of a citizen deliberately harming or killing police property or an animal in general. But in no case can harming or killing a police dog, even in the previous example, be seen or legally equal to killing a human. So let me just backtrack just a minute onto a sentence to clarify. Now in this part, or in a case where an idle or confined police dog that is used for scent tracking purposes is attacked, harmed, or killed, then it can be possible to create a legal case against that citizen. So I don't support or believe in dogs or animals used by law enforcement to harm, attack, or kill human beings, criminal or not. But if you have a case where a dog is trained as a scent animal used for drugs or explosives or finding and locating human beings, if someone goes out of their way and harms that dog, if it's sitting in the car or if it's tied up somewhere and they harm it or kill it, it can be seen where that can be a case for a criminal act, but only if those dogs are used in that purpose. What I talk about in my discussion today about citizens defending themselves against an attack from a dog, that's different from if somebody were to initiate some sort of attack onto these scent trained dogs only. So on to the next point. Now I will talk about blurring the line. So because dogs, quote dogs, are commonly seen and used as pets in America, American courts and law enforcement agencies play off of this fact and quote unquote blur the line of distinction between weapon and pet. What this means is that law enforcement intentionally makes it appear that their police dogs are quote pets of the law, unquote, quote pets of humans, unquote, and an associated class of quote unquote pets in America. This is not true. The reality is that police dogs are police tools and police weapons. It's American law enforcement that's bending facts and placing, quote, a pet or animal where it does not belong. Using trained police dogs for scent tracking purposes, which includes drugs, etc., is fine, but training any animal or dog to attack, harm, or kill humans is not. Therefore, by placing such a trained animal in a known dangerous situation or potentially violent or fatal event is a criminal act by any law enforcement agency and or police officer that does that. Any animal or dog that gets harmed or killed by being in that situation is first and foremost the fault and responsibility of the officer or law enforcement agency, and it's not the fault of the citizen defending him or herself. It's important to point out that in the reverse situation, that is, when a police officer is threatened, charged, or attacked by any American citizen's dog or animal, police officers shoot and kill those dogs and animals in self-defense. And the officer, to my understanding and knowledge, is never charged, prosecuted, or held responsible for the act of defending him or herself against such a dog or animal attack. Now, if a nation such as the United States of America has laws which protect citizens' rights, then it would also be a felony offense on any officer, police officer, whom harms or kills any citizen's dog or pet, as law enforcement does against citizens for the same act reversed. So I have actually seen video of an American police officer shooting and killing a citizen's dog that was the size of a Chihuahua when the dog barked at and ran towards the police officer. Now, if an American police officer is allowed by law to shoot such an animal in self-defense, then surely anyone can understand when any American citizen harms or kills any police dog that is viciously attacking them, tearing their skin, tearing their tendons, their veins, and crushing bones, all while inflicting torture, terror, and disease on any American citizen, criminal or not. So I think that part is self-explanatory. I'm just going to mention it or look at it again. So if the reason behind the court's logic of allowing by law for a police officer to kill your dog, the dog does not have to be physically touching the officer. It only has to be in a broad proximity. And when I say that, I mean you can be talking 50 feet away. The officer may shoot the dog while it's still 50 feet from him or her. And if by law the officer is allowed to do this because this dog is a threat to them, then there's no justification or explanation anywhere in American law that can be made, or any case that can be made, to reveal that any American citizen does not have the right to defend themselves against an attacking police dog. So in other words, if a police officer can act on that kind of a threat, even with a small Chihuahua this big, then when you have a dog, a 150-pound dog or 200-pound dog, whatever, that's a full-size German Shepherd and it's trained to attack and kill you, then when that dog is upon you and ripping your flesh and crushing your bones, surely you have the legal right to kill that dog. Now, you can harm the dog to make it stop, but there should be no distinction between harming and killing. I mean, in a situation like that, it's kind of like if you were to be attacked by a wild animal out in the woods or something, and then you were held accountable for killing the animal and not just harming it. It wouldn't make any sense at all. There's no logic behind that at all. I mean, when your life is threatened, you have the legal right to use any means necessary to stop that attack and that threat. And if it leads to death of the police canine dog, that's irrelevant compared to just injuring the dog. You should never be in that situation in the first place. The law never has the right to do that to any citizen. They cannot put any dog upon you in an attack situation like that. It's 100% illegal. So I hope that makes sense, that that the police can shoot your dog, but you're not allowed to defend yourself in an attack from a police dog. You can see the stupidity and irony in that. Now, those are the main points, but I just want to close with a few things here. A police dog should only be used for scent tracking purposes, and it is not appropriate or legal to use a dog to attack, terrorize, harm, or kill humans, if it's police or not. That means citizens can't go train a dog to do that and then set that dog upon you to do that harm to you, and neither can the police. It's not a felony or crime to defend yourself against any attacking animal, regardless of what American law states. Human rights trump American law in every case, and that's always true. You'll see in American history where the law does not keep up with human rights, but eventually it does, hopefully, get there. And that's why you'll see cases like this, where there'll be a law that allows an animal to attack and harm you when it's a violation of human rights, because it just hasn't caught up. American law hasn't caught up to that progression yet of human rights. And I'd like to say to the people that may think, and I'm quoting a hypothetical statement from those type of people, well, only those who deserve it receive the police dog attacks, unquote. You can imagine that there's people out there who feel or think that way. And to those statements, I say that is untrue. First, the violations of human rights is wrong, whether it's done to a criminal or an innocent citizen. It's wrong, no matter what. Second, rarely is there ever such a heavenly or angelic check system over dangerous powers, preventing the executors of such powers, of such powerful positions, from abusing it or doing corrupt harm to the innocent. A good other subject example of this is police shootings, because since police are given deadly weapons to use at their disposal, meaning if they feel afraid, startled, angry, or emotional, they can and often do fatally shoot innocent American citizens simply by shooting them with their gun, because the law has made it so easy and legal for them to do that. My point being that giving permissions to use an animal to attack only criminals does not mean that only criminals will be attacked by those animals. Noting it's still illegal to use an animal to attack any criminal anyway. So whenever something is set up by the law, not just police dogs, but if there's a system of force, a deadly force, or some type of questionable action within the law, you need to realize that that's never going to be a reality, that only the people who that is set for are going to receive that. It's just a human condition that it just doesn't work out like that. And depending on the level of corruption and honesty or political system in any nation that uses police dogs, that can determine whether or not there's just a lot of abuse of that power or maybe very, very little. But with all police systems, even when you have very little corruption or abuse of the power, what happens is that um, because the system is set up to support law enforcement at all costs, meaning they can do no wrong in their own eyes, then they make sure that that's the case even when they are at fault. So even if you have very low corruption or abuse of power, when it does happen, you're going to see a situation where the law is going to protect itself and not take responsibility for what it has done wrong, even when it's an insignificant amount. Because if it's corrupt, it's going to always try to protect itself and cover up. So you'd think that when it's not corrupt or very little corrupt, that it would not have very much of that dishonesty, but that's not true. It's because they have a lot to lose by having one thing reflect badly on them that they put a lot of energy into covering that up. So um, the last point of this discussion that I want to talk about is in the future of human evolution, what I've just discussed regarding police dogs will be accepted. I guarantee it. Hopefully that made some sense to you and it helps open your eyes and see what's going on. And in the future, as I said, it will change if a society is continuing to progress and human rights continues to be more and more recognized, then it will change. And it will be a case where they will look back on using dogs in this capacity. They'll look back at it in a prehistoric context, in the same way you look back at cavemen or Neanderthal existence, and you see things that are prehistoric and that are just are very old ways of human beings doing things, and that'll be the same thing with police dogs. They'll look back at it and wonder why they ever used them in that capacity. And when human evolution progresses, it's always very easy to look back and see that, oh, using a dog to attack people is a terror act. It's an act that's intentionally done as punishment. It lets law enforcement step outside of their positions as guiders of the law, and it puts them into a gang setting or a terrorist setting where they can use this weapon to intentionally harm you, intentionally punish you, terrorize you, and kill you. And knowing that they do that is part of the image that they use, just like somebody flashes a gun or a knife to you as a way of terrorizing what they could do or plan on doing to you, and a police dog is used in that same capacity. And I think I mentioned it enough, but it is illegal to do that. And in the future, it will be seen. When that happens, it may not happen in my lifetime, but you should know that it's just because the law does use those dogs, and because they did pass that law saying it's a felony harm, just because that exists doesn't mean it's legal and doesn't mean it's a fact. I mean, it's something that's going to happen, is happening, is going to happen, but hopefully as soon as possible something like that can change, and people can be recognized for their rights, and this terror won't happen. So Dub Crank signing off. Thank you. Take care.